Good mentors challenge you. Good mentors tell you when you're wrong, right? Everyone can tell you when I'm right. I mean, I have 1,000 employees today who every day tell me I'm right with every decision I make. But it's those mentors in my life that I learned along the way, how important those are to my growth. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't be here today without those mentors.
Welcome to the Break Free podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. Today we have with us an exceptional entrepreneur, a person that has gone from business to business, just living blessings after he's gone through the business. Chris, welcome to the show.
David, good morning. How are you? Or good afternoon for you. Good morning for me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome.
Chris, I get so blessed by doing this podcast. There is no other thing I would rather do than interviewing incredible people like you. When I heard your story, when my team found you on the internet, I have come to realize that it's because of people like you that a lot of businesses grow, and that you don't necessarily need to have a lot of formal education in order to actually grow in life. In fact, a lot of my guests don't have a lot of formal education, and they became very successful in life. And I believe you're one of those cases, but I don't want to do a spoiler for my audience. So Chris, tell me for the audience, give me your full name, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Schultz. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I am the CEO of Voodoo Donut, which is headquartered here in Portland.
Beautiful. So as I was telling before, I did a little bit of a spoiler there, but I have known that your life career, it has been exceptional, and you still have a smile in your face. And I'm saying that because I know the food industry is very hard. The restaurant, specifically the restaurant industry, is really hard. And if you add franchising to that, it's really, really hard too. So tell me a little bit more about the current business you're in. Where are you guys located, and what do you guys do in there?
Sure, yeah. So we're, for those that don't know Voodoo, shame on you, you should. We're a gourmet donut restaurant out of Portland. We now are 22 stores strong across the country. I call us an 18-year startup. For the first, call it 15 years of existence, they were 5 stores, and we had 2 founders. And we do gourmet, kind of crazy, not your parents' donut shop, if you will. We've got a range of 51 different offerings. When you come in our stores, our donuts are in jewel cases, not racked like your typical donut shop. You'll hear music you probably will never hear in a music shop, in a donut shop anywhere. We have great big chandeliers. We just do things differently, right? We're kind of the alt side, if you will. If you think about Portland and then how would donut shops be in Portland, that's what you get with Voodoo, right? Just kind of be yourself, kind of enjoy yourself. So we're fortunate today. We're in Denver and Boulder and Tempe and Houston and Austin and San Antonio and Universal Studios, City Walk in LA and Orlando. So like I say, 22 stores, a little over 1,000 employees.
Over 1,000 employees. That's beautiful. Now, when you got there, how big was the organization?
Yeah, so there was 5 units, and they had about 125 employees when I arrived 6 years ago. As you spoke about, I feel like I'm blessed. I love that word, and I think people don't throw around it often enough, right? I feel very, very blessed for sitting where I'm at today. To give you a little of my background, maybe. I've only ever worked in a restaurant company, in a restaurant business. So 40 years of my life, all I've ever done is worked in restaurants. I've never worked another job. I wasn't a very good student in high school. I just didn't dedicate myself. I thought it was for everybody else, not for me. And unfortunately, when that time came of, okay, now what's next? All my friends and buddies and family all went off to college. I went back to work in the restaurants. And so, we were talking earlier, we had a great conversation, but I started my job at 16 years old. And I don't even know if I told you this story, but at 16 years old, 16 being a big birthday, right? You're going to get a car, you can drive. I woke up in the morning and I was so excited. I was sure I was going to get a car. I'm the oldest of three boys, and I was sure we were going to celebrate my birthday. And I came downstairs and I'm like, okay, my birthday, and nothing, right? And I went off to school and I thought, well, when I come home, there'll be this big celebration, birthday cakes, friends and family, and balloons. And I remember coming home that day and my mom said, your dad will be home in just a minute and he wants to take you somewhere. And I was like, oh, maybe we're having a surprise party. Maybe it'll be a great big surprise party. And my dad got home and said, jump in the car. And we jumped in the car. We drove down to a local restaurant, Sabroso's. To this day, I remember that. And we drove into the parking lot. There was no cars. I'm like, oh, it's a surprise party. They've done such a good job. They're all hiding. And I walked in the restaurant and there was nobody, not a soul. And I thought, well, this is a crazy thing. What's going on? And a gentleman walked out of the back and my dad said, Chris, meet George. George, meet Chris. George is the owner of this restaurant. You start here tomorrow as a dishwasher. Happy birthday.
I was going to ask, what was your first job in the food industry? So your dad got you your first job as a dishwasher when you were 16 years old.
16 years old. And I worked there
and that
for
was your
4
birthday
years.
gift.
That was my birthday gift. He said, if you want a car, you're going to have to learn to work to earn things in life. And I worked there for 4 years and they called me Carlos. 4 years, they never called me Chris. They called me Carlos for 4 years in a row. And even to this day, as I go back, there's one person still there. And when I go back and visit my family and I go in, he calls me Carlos. He says, Carlos, how are you? And I said, I'm Chris.
They all spoke Spanish.
They only spoke Spanish. And I didn't speak a word of Spanish. And so, but yeah, that was my first job. So I've only ever worked in restaurants.
You know, Chris, God bless your father, because a man like that will bring blessings to their generations by instructing their kids like you. I had a very similar father to you. That's why I'm a successful entrepreneur. You know, the worst thing that we can do to our kids nowadays is provide everything they want. And notice that I didn't say provide everything they need. We're supposed to provide everything they need until they become of age. But everything they want, that's the biggest mistake that we make as parents, because what we do is we create people that have a lot of self-righteousness and people that believe that they deserve everything in life without doing their part. And then when you see in the streets people manifesting and protesting because they want more from governments, it's because they had parents like that they just gave everything to them and they took everything for granted. And this free world is based on people that are willing to do what it takes to provide employment to others. Look at yourself, from 125 employees to 1,000 employees, you almost 10x the amount of opportunities for people to get a job in a decent place. Why? Because your dad gave you a job as a gift when you were 16. So you understood the economics of the free world. Isn't that amazing? And that's what we have over every other, system that is oppressing people, and the government is dictating what to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, at 16, I didn't look at it that way, right? At 16, I was bitter. I was angry. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, how in the world do I get a job for my birthday at 16? But I tell you, I look back now, almost 40 plus years later, and it was a blessing, right? It was a true blessing. I became the CEO of the Dish Pit for 4 years, right? I learned how to manage people. I was in an environment where people didn't speak the language I spoke. And I was 16 years old and I was trying to survive and make money and go to work. And I saw these hardworking individuals who, for me, it was extra money, right? I was going to school, it was extra money that I could enjoy. These folks were paying bills for their families.
Yeah. Right.
And so I saw the hard work, and when I'd go in, the same person would be there for 12, 14 hours a day. And, both from I think, obviously you learn hard work from your family, but at 16, I learned hard work from the folks around me at work who had to work and had to go to earn a living. So, yeah, I'll tell you, at 16, I didn't look at it that way. But, again, 40 plus years later, I don't know that I would do it today to my kid, but I think the whole essence, right, at the core was the right essence.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? it's there is something special when you put an effort to earn what you want, right? Isn't it? When something is given to you just like that, you are happy for 3 days. But if you have to sweat and you have to figure it out and you have to go to work and you have to do something to earn what is it that you're looking for, that satisfaction stays a lot longer.
Yeah, I believe so, right? I mean, I learned that, and you and I talked about this a little bit, failure just wasn't an option, right? You go about things very different when failure's not an option, right? When you row the boat ashore and burn the boat, it's a whole different life. And, when I again, didn't have the opportunity to go to anything beyond high school. I barely made it out of high school. I think I made it out of high school. I'm still not quite sure. But, the reality was I didn't have an option, right? The restaurant industry was going to be the way I earned a living. And so I really put my head down and said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be successful. And I feel very blessed, again, 40 plus years later of having only served people food, right? My whole life. I'm sure we'll get into my career prior to Voodoo, but it's really been blessed. I've been very fortunate.
A lot of people will actually think, imagine you're a parent and your kid says, you know what, Dad, I'm okay. I'm not going to university. I'm going to stick at my restaurant job. That's scary, man. But you turn out to be an incredible leader. Let's dissect that. And this is a message also for parents, because you have to give your children some type of freedom, especially when they are maturing. We have a God-given free will, right? God made us in his image, and God is free to do whatever he wants. And he wants us to have that freedom. Now, we will pay the consequences for the wrong choices. That comes with the freedom. But if we as parents overprotect our kids, especially when they're mature enough, when they're 18 plus, and we don't let them do their own life, even though they will actually, bang their head against the wall, we're doing a misservice to them, because then we're delaying their maturity, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, again, failure wasn't an option, right? I chose this path in life, and, I look at it as I made some good decisions. I was in the right place at the right time and had some great mentors. One of the things I learned throughout my career was, obviously my parents are great mentors, but along my path, I found great mentors, people I could look up to, people that were honest with me, people that could tell me the truth, right? And that's what I define a good mentor to be. Not always one that agrees with you all the time. Good mentors challenge you. Good mentors tell you when you're wrong, right? Everyone can tell you when I'm right. I mean, I have 1,000 employees today who every day tell me I'm right with every decision I make. But it's those mentors in my life that I learned along the way, how important those are to my growth. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't be here today without those mentors and those folks that along that path really guided me and really helped me become the leader I want to become, right? I became a person because of my parents. I became a leader because of my mentors.
That's a great analogy, and that's for sure what happened to me too, right? Having somebody above you that has the place that you want to get, and having them train you for that place, it's beautiful. And I did get some bosses in my life where they were so afraid of losing their job that they would not want to train me in their ways, and usually they fell off the wagon. The people that had the confidence to know that your employee has to become better than yourself are the people that will get promoted above their current positions. And I always tell this to my people in the companies that I run. If you are hoarding information and you are not training your replacement, you're getting stagnant in a job forever. If you want to grow in your corporate ladder, if you want to grow in life, you have to mentor people underneath you so that they can take your place so you can move up.
Yeah, one of the greatest things I learned, I spent almost 13 years at Starbucks during the early 90s in growth, right? I think I started there was 250 stores or so. I left there was 20,000, right? Imagine that growth. And one of the best things I learned was hire people that are better than you. Hire people that are better than you. And it took me years to really recognize and understand what that meant, right? Yeah. And for me, it was a challenge because you never want people around you think are better than you. Why would you want to do that, right? The normal DNA as a human being is, I want to be viewed as being the best. And I had a great mentor that said, shame on you. You're always hiring people that aren't as good as you, if not better. Hire people that are better than you. And so I set forth as a leader to find people and surround myself with people that are better than me, right? People that are better than me in finance or marketing or HR. Just find people that are better and let them do their job. You get out of their way. You know, as I'm sure you can relate, for years I was a micromanager, right? I wanted to make every decision had to come through me. No one could do anything without asking me. And I thought that was success because now I was controlling everything. Where I really became a great leader is when I let go of those reins and I let people make decisions and I let people make mistakes, right? I'm only as good as my last mistake. And I tell my team that every time, right? Not as good as my last success, but my last failure. Because I've learned from it and we learn from that. So when people say to me, tell me some of the things your successes, I'd rather tell you some of my mistakes, right? Because I learned from those and how did I grow was by making a mistake. So, you know, again, I was very blessed early on when I got the time at Starbucks, and then, you know, that led to a company called Mod Pizza. Then now is throughout the country, internationally. And I started with one store, we grew to 500. So, you know, I've kind of been around
1 to 500.
1 to 500 and almost 8,000 employees. And so, you know, I've learned that I can't micromanage. I just can't. That doesn't mean I don't feel the stress. And in my head, I don't question every decision. Of course, I question every decision. That's part of being a great leader. But, you know, the reality for me has been learning how to let go. And I think it's just made me a better leader. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better human being. It's made me a better partner. You know, there's a difference between being a manager and being a leader, night and day. I was a great manager. I was a terrible leader early on. Great manager. I could get things done like no tomorrow, but I was a terrible leader.
You know, the secret to your success is because you learn early enough in life that having a big ego will not get you anywhere. Right? Because you have to, if you just think about it, if you listen to your humble boss, by the way, your humble mentor, if you didn't remove your ego, you will have never be able to hire somebody better than you, because that will actually hurt your ego, isn't it? It's, you know, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a born-again Christian. I always try to say that because I looked at the man when he was on earth and what he taught, and I applied it to my business life, and that's why I'm so successful. You know, we believe that he was God and he became human to teach us how to live life. So if you look at the life of this human when he was here, he came to teach humbleness. He came to teach, you know that servant leadership philosophy. It comes from there. You are a servant leader. What did you just tell me? You hire people better than you, and then you let them do their job. And so that implies that your job is to remove all the obstacles from their way so they can use their skills that you don't have to do a job that you couldn't do.
Yeah, it took a while. I'll tell you, it took a while, right? It just,
right?
And, you know, now at this point in time in my career, I'm still learning, right? People ask me every day, boy, you know, you feel like you've reached the pinnacle and what's next? And what's next? I just want to be a better leader. I don't want to be a better CEO, right? A CEO is a title, right? I want to be a great leader. I want people to go, that's a great leader. That's someone who I aspire to be more like and who I aspire to be a part of, be surrounded by. Doesn't mean I don't have bad days. One of the things I also learned, and I bet you align with this, as a good leader, I can't have a bad day for my team. I cannot have a bad day. I can wake up in the morning and not feel good and have stresses of life and stress of personal life. When I come to work, I'm having a good day because everyone feeds off of me. Everyone feeds off of me. And so, you know, if I'm having a bad day, I leave or I'm not around so people don't see that. But The reality is I cannot have a bad day. So it's Monday morning, I'm up, I'm ready to go. Lots of stress. I knew we were going to talk this morning, which made my day even better. But the reality is I've got to have a good day today, right? Because everyone around me feeds off of it. So that's the other part of being a great leader is you set the tone, right? You define the environment. You define the environment of everyone that works for you and everybody surrounded with you by the tone you set. If I come in and I'm barking and I'm angry and I close the door to my office and I'm unapproachable, everyone's like, well, what's up with that, right? Then everyone else has the right or the key to be angry. We laugh about it. I sell donuts for a living. There's a lot of really difficult jobs. Selling donuts isn't one of them. We sell fun, right? And so
but you're right. But having said that, though, I was a senior IT leader for a franchise that were in the food industry.
Yeah.
And I know that it might not look complicated, but if you don't optimize your processes, if you don't provide the customer service, if you don't have the right environment with the lighting, the music, then you become one of those massive donut shops that people hate to come in because it even smells bad.
Yeah, you become ubiquitous. I think no one wants to be ubiquitous. As a human being, as a brand, as a company, no one just wants to be looked past, right? And so I think it's important. That's a great point. Listen, this food business is really hard. Really hard. I think, when people ask me what's the best advice, when they're thinking about getting in the food business, what's the best advice I can give them? My answer always is don't do it. Just don't do it. Right? Find something else. Find something else. Now, if you choose to do it, be authentic, be transparent, own who you are, right? And recognize it's hard work. But at the end of the day, we all make, you have hard work. I'm sure your listeners look up and go, you have a hard job. I do X, Y, or Z. And I never define myself based on how much we work, right? I define myself based on the success that you feel and how good you feel about what you do every day. To me, that's the definition of success. It's not about the money or the title or the people that report to you. It's how do you feel when you go to work and how do you feel when you come home? And, they call it work for a living, right? It's not, I don't call it fun. We call it work. But you've got to get some fulfillment from that. And I applaud you in our little conversation earlier of all the successes you've had. Now you're giving back, right? By podcasts like this. And I just feel blessed and humbled that you invited me to join you.
Oh no, like the pleasure is mine. I mean, all the stuff that we have learned so far with your life. And we haven't even actually touched a lot of the points that I want to touch. For example, a dishwasher that becomes the person that grabs a company with one store and makes it to 500 stores to 8,000 employees has to have had some breakthroughs in their life. And this is so important for me because the breakthroughs are, for me, the breakthroughs are the accumulation of good decisions that eventually breaks the wall and gets you to the next level in life. So what was that first breakthrough that you had from being a dishwasher until having a management position? Like, what was that? Open the door for you.
Yeah. Again, I had a great mentor. And believe it or not, it wasn't a high-powered executive. It was the manager of the restaurant, right, that I worked at when I was Carlos. It was the manager. And that manager had been in the restaurant business for years and years and years. And they were running this one Mexican restaurant in Southern California, right? But he took great pride in what he did. He came in every day. He was dressed impeccably. He talked to his team. He motivated his team. And I remember as a dishwasher, I aspired to be him, right? Now he was running one restaurant. And so one day I remember we were sitting and talking and I asked him, how can I become you? And he laughed at me. He said, you don't want to become me. You want to become bigger than me. He said, set the bar high, right? Dream big. If you don't dream big, you're never going to achieve it. And that was one breakthrough in my life where I was like, wow, what can I do? What can I become? Right? And so for me, that was an aha moment in my mind that set those bars so high that you almost look at them. Think about me. I was a dishwasher at 17 years old, 18 years old. And I was like, I'm going to run a restaurant company someday in my head, right? Because I was like, that's what I want to become. And I've always thought that way, right? Is dream big, because you never know what you're going to get unless you set that bar. So that was the first breakthrough for me. Was this great manager, Javier, who said to me, "You don't want to be me. Be bigger than me. I'm just a stepping stone to what you want to become." And so I have this great little tool that I use for gratitude. So every morning I wake up and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I have a little notebook that's beside my bed. I get up in the morning, I walk the dog, and then I sit down before I do anything else, and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for in my little book. Now, I don't share the book with anybody. I don't share the book with my wife. I don't share the book with anybody. It's only my book. But it allows me to understand, start the day out feeling gratitude. And sometimes it's just gratitude for a great walk, or the sun was out, or again, I define what gratitude is. No one can define what my gratitude is, but I do it every single day. And again, it was one of those things that for me was a reminder that I should be grateful. I need to be grateful. And so I do that every day, every single morning for the last 40 years of my life. I have a couple notebooks. I'm sure if someone ever finds them, they'll be like, what is this crazy stuff written in this book? But I don't use my phone. I don't use my computer. I literally have to write down with pen and paper exactly what I'm grateful for every morning. So that was the first breakthrough. Dream big.
Yeah, we can write a book about this, right? Chris,
oh, that's so kind.
The secrets, right? Like the blessings, because you were adaptable, because you were humble, because you were willing to listen to the people that were above you. You discover spiritual laws that exist, like the law of gravity. Can you look at gravity? Can you feel can you see gravity in a box? You can never see gravity with your eyes. You cannot feel gravity with your hands, but it's there. If you drop something, it will fall down to the ground. And gravity keeps the universe together it keeps all the astros from hitting each other. But we discovered these laws. One of the laws that you just told me is, number 1, dream big. Number 2, gratitude. You have those 2 things. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to be anything. Apply those 2 things and be humble. That's number 3, humbleness. Because humbleness allows you to learn from people that have what you want and even more. So why do I say this? Everything in this material world is created in the invisible world. And that's the world of your imagination. When you were dreaming big, you were imagining what you wanted. And I bet you didn't do it just once. You did it over and over, because there is a gestation period, right? It's when a lady gets pregnant, when her husband gets her wife pregnant, the first 2-3 months is like nothing is happening. It's invisible. But that baby is there and it's growing. And before you know, after 9 months, you have a beautiful human being on the earth. Well, this is the same for our dreams. So many people that I talk to, they are like, David, but what you told me doesn't work. And I tell them, you're not that good. You need to have that gestation period, and then you need to be humble. And then first, you need to be grateful for what you have right now. Because whatever you're going to get in the future is not going to make you as happy as what you can be right now. And being happy, the only way to be happy in life, Chris, is by being grateful for where you are right now, no matter how bad it is. Because then you start having good days. And you have every day a good day, and right now.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so. And then you couple that with failure's just not an option, right? Not letting yourself we all have negative thoughts, right? We all have thoughts in our minds of, boy, that was a failure, or something happened, or right? You run into it all day long. But for me at the end of the day, failure is just not an option. Meaning that if I fall, I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and take the next step forward. That doesn't mean I didn't run into walls. Of course I did, right? I ran into walls throughout my career where people were like, well, you don't have an education, right? You don't have that background. And I remember interviewing for jobs early on, and people were like, well, you didn't go to college. And so those were people were putting up walls in front of me along that path. But in my head, failure just wasn't an option. I was like, okay, that's a wall. I'm not going to go around it. I'm going to have to go over it. So how do I go over it? So if I don't have a great education, formal education, I'm going to have to learn how to manage better. So I'm a big reader. So I read books about leadership, and I asked people a question about leadership, and I learned a P&L, and I asked people that were really good at P&Ls, like, can you walk me through once again how a profit and loss statement works, right? For those of your readers who are not in the restaurant business or business in general, right? A profit and loss statement is your report card, right? It tells you how your business is doing. And I couldn't make hide or hair of it initially, but I found people that were smarter than me that could teach me how to do that. So I realized if I didn't have the formal education, I would have to be really good at what I did. So failure just wasn't an option.
I love how you define that, because failure doesn't mean you're going to make huge mistakes. What failure means, optimal failure means, is not achieving your goals. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a bunch of mistakes. You just said at the beginning of the interview, right? I'm as good as my last mistake, because that's going to teach me how not to do things. So it's not about, because I also get people that they don't try because they're afraid of failing. They don't try because they say, if this doesn't work, I'm going to feel terrible. I'm like telling them, do you know how to ride a bike? And they say, yeah. Okay. How many times did you fall off the bike before you learn how to ride the bike? Many times. Exactly. But every time you learn something different, until you finally were able to balance in that bicycle. Life is the same way.
Yeah, I think life or business or, entrepreneurs that start out, right? Entrepreneur is chock full of failure, right? To be a good entrepreneur, you have to fail because you have to be willing to try, right? Entrepreneurs like yourself go out and try things. I mean, the world's built on entrepreneurism, right? I mean, entrepreneurs are people that had an idea, brought it to market, probably failed 4 or 5 times along the route, probably were told hundreds of times, that's a silly idea. That'll never work. It's those that work through that.
Sorry, Chris, I had a little hiccup. The last thing that I heard was the world is built on entrepreneurs. Is that what you said?
Yeah, of course, right? The world is built on entrepreneurs. The world is built on people like yourself who had an idea, right? And was willing to take it to market and make mistakes and be told a million times that that'll never work, right? And that's how the world was built. Think about some of the biggest brands out there today, Apple, the Steve Jobs of the world, right? How many times, I'm sure in his life, was he told that'll never work? And he nodded his head and said, okay, then I better go find somebody else. And so that, I think that's how the world was built. And I think that's how businesses are built, right? I personally, I've not started a business, but I've taken businesses from very small to very big. I've taken their dream and run with it. And I applaud entrepreneurs like yourself, because holy cow, it is not for the faint of heart.
Hi, Chris, we're back. Time is running out really fast. It's already been 40 minutes after we started the conversation, and I want to really honor your time. We're also having a little bit of internet interruptions. So I'm going to get you in for episode 2. You have so much knowledge. I don't even know how you got your dream made reality when your first boss told you to dream bigger. I didn't know how you actually accomplished that, which is, one thing is to dream, another thing is actually to accomplish your dreams, and it's very different. So, Chris, I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to get you in next week to have part 2 of this incredible podcast. If people want to get in touch with you, Chris, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can email me. I mean, I'm completely open book. So it's just Chris at Voodoo Donut, and it's singular, and donut spelled like DOUGHNUT.com. Just send me a note. Let me know they heard me on the podcast with David. And I'm an open book, right? I'm only as good as the mentors I had. So send me a note, ask me any question. I'm sure they can come through you, but yeah, they can send me an email anytime.
Wonderful. Chris, thank you so much for being in the podcast. And I'll see you next week with the second recording. God bless
Thank you
man.
so much. Bye now.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.